Hey everyone, I am the Chosen One Legend here, as always joined by my co-host.
Hi, I'm Kai, also known as Fascurreyn.
And welcome back to the BunchaJokahs podcast, where it is time, finally time, to talk about Xenoblade Chronicles 3. Oh yes, this has been a long time coming, hasn't it, Kai?
It has. The game has been out for like a couple months at this point, and
Yeah,
we've been alluding to it here and there, but like we just haven't done any proper conversations on it yet because we've not, we've just been playing the game first. We need to enjoy it and experience it before we start talking loads about it.
it's a hefty
So,
experience, that's for sure.
yeah, that's where we've been. That's what we've been doing. We wouldn't make 3 hours of speculation before the game comes out. That'd be ridiculous.
Nah, that's insane, Kai, insane. But we've both beaten the game now. We've had a week or so. We finished it about a similar time, so we've had a bit of time to sit through our thoughts a little bit. And that's what we're going to do here. We're going to just talk through our general impressions of the game. Sort of a kind of review of sorts, but really just how we're feeling about it all. We're not going to go too into detail and specifics because that's going to be its own series of videos that will probably take us through the next year at this point. I mean,
Yeah, pretty much.
there's lots to discuss. So this is just more of our general impressions and how we're finding things, having both finished the game. I should mention up front that this is going to be a spoiler discussion, so we will definitely be referencing and alluding stuff from the main story. We'll try, where possible, to not spoil like specific optional hero quests and ascension quests, as not everyone may have done those. But keep in mind, we will be referencing probably other heroes and certain stuff that does unlock in the post game. So if you haven't booted up the game after beating it, go do that. It's worth a check.
Yeah, there's a lot to do, and just in the game in general, it's a big game, as we've seen.
It is. It definitely is. And you know what? Let's not waste any time here in the intro then. Let's just get straight started on our thoughts. And I think let's just start things off with a general impression. Did you enjoy your time with Xenoblade 3, Kai? I think I know the answer.
No. Yeah, I had I mean, I've got like what 220 hours in the game already.
Yeah.
Having played it for I think about a month and a half at this point. So I feel like that spells it out, I've been of course I've been streaming everything I've been doing in the game. And I've just been playing it like 4 or 5 times a week, 5 or 6 hours every time. So, and I'm still not bored of it. So,
Yeah.
if that doesn't explain that I'm enjoying the game, then I don't know what will. So,
I find it sometimes very easy to get burnout in games, but not with Xenoblade. I feel like I've just been playing this for less time than you, but for longer than you. I'm kind of a slower gamer. I tend to break things up a bit, but I've still been enjoying it every minute of it, and I got to keep doing so as they add more DLC and stuff. It's just fun to be playing Xenoblade again. That's just it. And I remember just within like the first 10 minutes of the game, I'd watched the opening cutscenes. I was walking through the first area, and I was like, "Wait, I'm playing the Xenoblade again. This is a crazy feeling because it's been so long since Torna even. Definitive Edition of course was great, but it's a remake or remaster." And it just feels great to be playing the new Xenoblade game, and that feeling never, 10 hours in, 100 hours in, I'm at about 140 myself. That didn't die at all. It's just great being in the world of Xenoblade.
yeah, it
I find.
truly felt like a Xenoblade game. If nothing else, it did
Yeah.
strongly feel like one again. Just very reminiscent. Yeah, it was a lot of fun, definitely.
I think one thing I want to start off with on that sort of topic is, what I really love how Xenoblade games manage to do this is they get that perfect balance between new and familiar,
I
It's
was
got
going to say
all-
that exact same thing, actually. Yeah.
Yeah, it's just great. It's got those familiar aspects, I mean, 2 did this for 1, and 3 is doing it again. You've got things like arts, you've got your Nopon, you've got some similar story stuff, and you've got chain attacks, and it's all very familiar. If you've played Xenoblade before, you know a lot of what you're doing. Cancel attacks are back and all sorts. But then again, there's completely new stuff. It's a completely new world and characters. You've got things like in the gameplay, there's the class system. Chain attacks are completely revised. There's the whole focus, which I found interesting, on like rings in combat, which is a kind of a big new element here, and staying within those rings to heal or get buffs. And it somehow like I knew exactly what I was doing, but also it was new, and the way it managed to balance that gives you the feeling of something fresh and familiar, it's like hype on two different levels, and it's
Yeah,
always impressive.
it really advances what we already have. Well, like it simultaneously is like very, very familiar feeling, but is its whole own thing. Like I feel like if you were to have played 3 first and you did the games in reverse order, even or something like that, you would still have each game feel fresh while also being familiar. Like that's the real charm of it. Is it's not like, oh, it's just an improved battle system. It's a different battle system that still feels very familiar. And it's just, I don't know, it's a really great feeling that it still feels fresh while being like, hey, I feel like I'm understanding this already.
Yeah, I love this about the Xenoblade games, and there definitely are gameplay improvements. I think it does.
Oh, yeah,
each
100%.
game tidies things up, and it learns things like, we've got the camp system in this game, which takes stuff from Torna, which itself was an improvement on inns from Xenoblade 2. They definitely take things and learn and develop them, but at the same time, it's not in the way where if you go back to Xenoblade 1, I don't feel like, or particularly Definitive Edition, but even just the Wii version, I don't feel like I'm getting a lesser experience. It's just a different gameplay experience.
Exactly.
And there's things playing 3. Like if I went back to 2, I'd be like, man, I missed blades and I missed the elemental combos. If I go back to 1, I'd be like, man, I missed sort of the more unique character playstyles, like with Charlotte and her rifle and Melia and her staff. It feels more different each character. There's different parts about each game that they don't cancel each other out by just making a better version. It's all a unique experience, and they're all great for different reasons. And yeah, how do Monolith Soft keep doing this?
It's cool, isn't it? It's like they're not like replacing the previous games; they're adding more to them. In a way, it's just making I mean, overall, just Xenoblade 3 does a really good job at striking that balance between being its own thing and being connected to the rest of the series. I feel like, particularly in things like just the physical gameplay itself, they did a really good job there.
Yes, to speak a bit more about the gameplay, I really loved the mechanics that this game introduced. I think it was smart having the whole... I mean, for starters, it's genius how it has, like, depending on what faction they're from, their arts charge the same as in Xenoblade 2 or Xenoblade 1. That was just a really neat detail, but it also works in the gameplay sense, how you can fuse the two of them and combine arts, how each character has that customization aspect to them, and that feeling when you're able to get like all the different, I guess in Xenoblade 2 it's a driver combo, whatever you call it here now, in one go. You combine two moves and you do launch and smash right next to each other, and it just feels badass.
It does feel very cool to do that. Like, it's cool that you can essentially get a force topple if you have a break art and a topple art as a fusion and stuff like that. Like the battle system just feels so good with the fusion arts, and I mean, then you go into things like it's the positional arts was something I was a big fan of, because of course positional arts have always been a thing, but by adding things like healing rings in and stuff like that, it makes it even more important. So I feel like there was a lot of good there to be had. It was really enjoyable.
Yes, there's a lot of systems to it, and it's very... It's not quite Xenoblade 2 levels where everyone's playthrough is going to be different based on the blades they get, which, I mean, some would argue that's for the better, because people have very different opinions on the blade system. But I do like that everyone's going to have a different layout depending on what classes they level up and what arts they unlock from that, everyone's going to have a different build for the same character, even on the same class, depending what other optional stuff they put in. And that level of customization, whilst keeping it so that if you want, you can just put recommended. It's smart.
Auto build is a great feature, even if it's not perfect.
It is.
Like, it saves a lot of time because you will be changing classes a lot if you're playing the game properly.
And that's one thing...
It's just great, isn't it?
Yeah, and I mean, that's one thing I almost miss, and I wouldn't even call it a criticism of the game, it's just a necessary way of its systems, is I definitely put less time into equipping characters' accessories and gems in this game, because you're changing so often that if you were to completely go deep into it every time, you'd be here in eternity. It was so auto builds make sense. What I would do is I'd use auto build, but then I might make some adjustments, like I just want to make sure you have a launcher on you or something like that. But it manages that balance very well. I think again, I'll go into 2 criticisms I have the gameplay right here, just to get them out of the way. One is money is so useless in this game.
Yeah, they really could have added more in for it.
You get enough. as long as you're doing side quests and that, you don't really need to buy any accessories. Really, you're getting good stuff. So money is worthless. Also, in accessories, it's so awkward to sort through them, and I don't know why there's not more options. You can just sort by rarity and stuff like that, and suitable to your class, which is great. But you can't sort by like items that increase your HP or stuff. You can't do specifics. So there's definitely things they can do and improve it, but in general, the gameplay of this game, I just got lost in, and I still am lost into this moment. It's very fast, it's very fluid, and it's very intuitive. I think I got used to it very quickly.
And having 7 characters on the field at once is just like, before they showed anything off with this game, I would have thought that was a pipe dream of having 7 characters in the field. That was like my Xenoblade 1 dream of like, imagine if they're all out at the same time. That would be the best thing in the world. And then it's just like the regular gameplay here. It's such a like satisfying thing to see.
It really is, especially in big moments like the final boss and the story. You don't have to like, okay, what 3 characters am I sending into this? Nope. I mean, you have to pick your hero, but other than that, everyone's there. Your main group.
And you can switch between everyone mid-battle, like who you're playing as. It just offers a lot of variety in what you could possibly do. I feel like they really did hone in on the gameplay here, and it's very good to see. Well, there's also chain attacks. I feel like we'll probably go into more detail in that in the discussion devoted to gameplay, but chain attacks are very fun.
They are, yeah. They're very flashy, and I like the style to them. It's it reminds me of, like Xenoblade 2 had its whole thing with the narrator during battle where it added a bit of flair to it and stuff.
Awesome.
And I think awesome. I think the narrator actually voices one of the consoles in this game or something like that.
That is true, yes.
Yeah, which is awesome. But 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 I feel like Xenoblade 3 really has its personality through the chain attacks and through yippee! It's
yippee!
It's so good. It's and it's a completely different system, but again, they managed to do that with 2 as well. They made a different chain attack system, which I loved. And I don't miss it in when I go back to 2s, I'll enjoy it, but I don't miss it in 3s because I love what it does differently. And as always, getting off a massive amount of damage at the end and watching the health bar just drain is always satisfying. It's never not.
Yeah. I am curious, what's your highest damage chain attack?
Oh god, I don't remember. It starts with a 4, and
okay, that's all right. I want to flex, but by the time we do the video talking more about this, my own record will probably be beat by that point. So I don't know.
Yeah. I can't. There's a certain. It's not like 400,000. It might be, or was it 4 million? It's one of those. I can't remember
probably
which
4
it is.
million.
Yeah, I think I've reached the 4 million bar. That's the furthest I've got. Do I want to know what yours is?
6.8 million.
Nice.
Just 6.8 damage.
Can I ask what hero that was? Out of curiosity, what hero did you use?
I believe it was a post-game hero. I don't know if we can. Should we say?
Yes, we will mention right now.
Okay.
There are. I did say at the start. We're also going to spoil what's revealed in the post-game. There are 2 post-game heroes, and go for it.
I was using Melia because she's absolutely broken. I'm still sort of figuring out who is the best in chain attacks, but Melia's definitely one of the candidates because her ability is so good and she's so strong.
I've been fine. I think I was using her when I got the 4 million, so...
Yeah.
It's
there's more to come, I'm sure. I've not gotten to level 100 yet, so...
Yes, yeah. And, we've been talking about heroes and the characters. How did you find the cast of this game? Because, Xenoblade never drops the ball on that, but once again, they knocked it out of the park with just such great chemistry between its main cast, I feel.
Yeah, this game was the best one, I feel, in terms of the chemistry between the main cast. They had... the thing is that, like, they don't have heart-to-hearts in this game, which the other games did. So, some may argue, Xenoblade 1 did it better because every character combination from the main cast had 3 heart-to-hearts. But somehow it still feels like they did it better here. It feels like rather than talking about random things in heart-to-hearts, the character interactions from the main cast in this game were a lot more focused on the characters understanding each other, and it really felt like there was like a strong chemistry between them getting to know each other. You kind of see it from the early days of chapters 1 and 2, where they clearly do not trust each other still, and they're all a bit awkward. But then by later on in the game, they're fully like chill with each other, and you'd forget that they were trying to kill each other in the first chapter. It's just a really cool advancement, and I think they did an excellent job of replacing devoted heart-to-hearts to really cool character interactions in both cutscenes, hero quests, and the main story as the highlight.
That's it, yeah. They don't really... Not that I would complain if there were heart-to-hearts, but they don't need them because they're always interacting in the main story in the way that the cast of Xenoblade 1, and to a lesser extent, but still Xenoblade 2, doesn't to the same level, I think. And it benefited from having your entire cast playable from the start, basically. From the end of Chapter 1, you've got your main cast all there, and no one leaves the party for a significant amount of time at any point. Which means... with things like, even like, and this took a page from what I loved about Torna, was Torna's side quests, I think, were allowed to be so personal because it always knew what characters were in your party. So they'd always have unique dialogue for these, and this continues into 3. And so even in like the small side quests, there's so much personality and aspects to them, which make, I mean, we didn't mention this in gameplay, but the side quests I think are the best in this game that they've been in the franchise, up there with Torna's.
So much world building in them, it's fantastic.
Yeah. Because they've got this complete set cast throughout the whole thing, it really does add... I mean, part of it I do miss elements, like having thing like, oh shit, Morag's joining the party now, it's cool. It's fun, having stuff like that. But there are benefits to doing it this way, and this game was a perfect example of that, in how its dynamics were able to grow constantly throughout the whole experience.
Yeah, the main 6 were just very, very lovable. I do like the consistency of just like they're all there from the get-go pretty much, and you just get to know more about them because sort of going slightly into the wider story, just not too much but a little bit here. I find it really interesting how through the entirety of the main story you've got this main 6 cast that you're following, and like outside of them there are basically no consistent characters. Rico and Manan are the only other consistent characters that are part of, that main group. There are no other characters that are important in the story from beginning to end. Most of them are like relevant for about a chapter or two, and then after that it's like, well, they're just in the background now. They're not really doing much. And I, probably some criticism could be drawn from that, but I don't know what they would be, because I just really enjoyed how it managed to keep honing in on this main cast and having other characters come and go, and then, maybe they're more important in side quests at a later point, maybe they are just done for the story. Again, I'm not an expert, so I can't, fully touch on whether it's a good or bad thing, but I just found it really interesting that there weren't these ongoing characters that you kept on re-meeting a lot of the time. It was just often one-and-done deals, and it was kind of interesting that way.
Yeah, again, it's one of those things where it's not necessarily better than the way other games do it, it's just a different way, and I respect that Xenoblade 3 took a different approach even in that. And it really pays off for the main characters, but also it makes these side stories you get really fun. I think all the heroes you meet, and their ascension quests and that, I don't think there was really a bad one, I liked all of these characters. I enjoyed having them in the party. It surprised me in different ways, although they're like little side stories that don't always tie to the bigger world so much, they can still have those emotional moments in there and pay off.
Yeah,
and
the hero quests were fantastic. They were so good.
Yeah. They were consistently great, yeah.
Yeah, I think it was just like how, they all had like a lot of voiced cutscenes and stuff is the crazy part. Like they were all genuinely these full stories, almost all of them involve you getting a colony alongside it, so it was like, oh, that's a new small town to discover. Again, like colonies is a whole nother topic, but just overall, like it was great that they had this variety of heroes. They all had multiple side quests devoted to them. I found all of them really good. There wasn't, there's very few heroes that I looked at and was like, I do not like this character. And even on top of that, in gameplay, they all had like very unique, like not gimmicky, but they had like a specific skill set. So it was like, well, if you want to use this class, this is what you're getting. And because you have 7 characters in the party, you really can have certain characters specialize on certain things. For example, you've got Grey, where he gets stronger the less he misses, or Alexandria with critical hits, and just every character has something specific to them. and I loved that they did that.
Absolutely, and I also loved how a lot of their quests, these characters would interact, which is something you don't see so much in side quests in other games. But you'll have heroes in part of their quest to go meet another hero and take something from them or borrow something from them. And every time they crossed over, even in voice capacities in some of the Ascension quests, that was always like, oh, they're doing that. You know, I don't know why I didn't expect it, but I guess we don't really see that so much in past games. It really goes to show how much the extra content really was thought out and planned out so well in this game. It really builds this whole world, and I think maybe transition here a bit about the world of Xenoblade 3 Aionios, both in terms of its design, its exploration. What do you think of exploring the world?
I'm really of two minds on this. It's actually kind of goes both ways. Starting with the negative, I think that Aionios is my least favourite of the main three games in terms of like kind of the physical world, and I will explain that. It's like, you know, Xenoblade 1's got these two huge titans. Xenoblade 2's got all of these titans along the Cloud Sea, which I kind of liked the idea of, and then the World Tree in the middle, and it's like just really good imagery. Aionios' world map is just a weird amalgamation, and like, you know, understanding the plot.
It's a Picasso painting.
Yeah, and like understanding the plot and, you know, going through all of that, it makes complete sense why it's like that in hindsight. But I don't think it quite imposes itself in the same way. It does just feel like a weird mix. Like, again, I understand the story reasoning behind it, but I'm not too keen on that front.
I can see that. I think, in general, there's certain aspects of the world which are... I wouldn't necessarily change it, but it is just a consequence of the way the story is. You know, things like... you miss, like... There's less culture in this world, I think. You know, when you think about Xenoblade 2 and all the different cities built up, they all have history to them. Whereas here, it's just loads of different colonies, which have differences to them, but there's more similarity, there's less variety, which makes sense given the world and the whole point of Aionios. It's designed to be an endless conflict that just sustains the Mobius, you know. It's not meant to... These characters aren't meant to develop their own cultures and stuff. So it makes sense, and I think it works, but, you know, it does mean... As a consequence of that, you do miss certain elements of personality that the other worlds had a bit more of, I suppose.
Yeah, exactly. The one thing I will hand to the overall world design is I do like how it ends up being like a full circle.
Yes.
Like, just about. But yeah, although I don't like that side of it, I will say I did really like the individual areas. Every region was an absolute joy to explore. And although all of the locations from previous games that were kind of thrown in and remixed felt a bit maybe haphazard and without much reason, the area designs themselves still phenomenal. Stuff like the Raybell Tablelands, Elais Highway, Macta Wildwood, of course all of Arithia Sea being a huge Wind Waker type thing.
Yeah.
All the individual areas, their designs, and like the way that the landscape was made, so that you could really explore it, look up and down at all these secrets. That by far was the best in the series to me. Just how cool they made it and how fun they made it to physically explore the regions, like not taking into account the wider picture. Just going through all these regions was a lot of fun. And the only one I found tedious was the Dinar Desert, because it's the Dinar Desert.
Yeah, that makes sense. That adds up with Torna, to be fair.
Yeah,
but,
that was before I knew that landmarks and locations filled in the map. That's why I did every nook and cranny of it.
Oh god, yeah. That's on you, Kai.
We'll get to Cadentia region in another video. Don't worry, there's a whole story there.
Oh god, yeah. But I agree with you. I think one thing I want to mention is that something that I loved is brought back from Xenoblade 1, that Xenoblade 2 lacked a bit outside of being able to see the World Tree, was being able to see other locations and the world spread out before you, you know.
Yes.
It's seeing things like, from the start of the game, you can see, in the very first area, you can see Agnes Castle. You know, it's right there.
It's so
You can
clever.
see, the Great Sword and Araya from pretty much any point on the map. It's so beautiful, and I've got so many great screenshots of it. And I mean, Xenoblade 2, again, it's just the nature of the way the story of the game worked. They were separate titans. But you only really got that when you, when at the end of the game, when you can see the World Tree and stuff. But we're back to now, all the time, no matter where you are, there's some sort of crazy sight happening, and some sort of view of the rest of the world. and it always took my breath away, like every time.
It was so good. I mean, I even remember like being still on Everblight Plain, the first area, looking up. Of course, you saw Agnes Castle, like you say, and then you'd look up and be like, "Is that a traversable snow area up there?" And it was. It was Capricorn Peak, and it's just like how that works. And then, you know, whenever you get to certain high points, there's a secret area in Kevis Castle I've managed to make my way to, which is particularly charming. And you can see like basically everything from there, and it's just. It's so good to see that even though it is low polygon, you can see the whole world combined and kind of how it meshes together, and that is nice on its own. It's very nice.
It is. My only complaint, and this isn't even a real complaint because it's kind of necessary, but in the exact same way I find the same thing with Xenoblade 1. The view actually gets worse towards the end of the game because of story stuff. Then Origin shows up, which does look nice, but it blocks like some bits
of the view. It
blocks
the world, yeah.
Yeah, and it's the same as like Xenoblade 1, it gets to the end of the game, you lose like the bit of the Mechonis Lumen overview, you know, which is necessary because it's part of the story. But it is a shame, but it is what it is. But I completely agree about how the areas were so great to explore. Like, special shout-outs to Pentalis region, and how much diverse terrain there is in there. How many different aspects. I mean, you could feel it at times that the game was struggling with the frame rate, which, you know, it's not. It wasn't a deal breaker. It just is what it is. Switch Pro, anyone? You know, it's.
Yeah.
But even so, I will take that slightly stuttery frame rate at times for the crazy views and the different terrains all merged into one there, and how like you keep going. You're like you get a new area, you get to the Ribeye Flats. Like, this is still the same area. I thought I was going to get transition, but no, you walk straight into it, and.
The areas are big. They are
they are
big.
hefty.
Like the Faunus region, I remember being in chapters 2 and 3 and I was like, how big is this Faunus region? Because you know the stuff you do in chapter 2 where you go through like the middle of it, the very middle where Colony 4 ends up being, and you have all that. I thought that was the whole Faunus region, but then you've got Elais Highway to one side, Dinar Desert to another, and then to the south you've got Rainbow Tablelands, the Ribby Flats, Colony 30, even stuff like that leads into, you know, the Orion Trail and stuff. Like, it's huge. It's massive.
Yes, I made a dum-dum. I meant to say Faunus when I said Pentalis, but yes, it's the Faunus region I meant, which is bloody huge, yeah.
It's just crazy, though. Like, yeah, it's impressive. It's such a good thing as well. It's amazing.
And I know this is getting too specifics, but I still want to mention it here. I think one of my favourite feeling moments in the game was when I went into the area in Faunus, I can't remember the specific names, the highway where
Elais Highway, I had that too.
You hear the remix of the Hidden Machina Village, and I was like, oh god, this is incredible.
This sounds like a good transition
soundtrack
into music, and that's exactly what we're going to do. Elais Highway was
good.
Maybe my favourite area theme in the game. Oh my god, it was gorgeous. Because here's the thing about Hidden Machina Village. That is one of the least interesting or memorable area tracks from Xenoblade 1. Like, when you think Xenoblade 1 area themes, there's so many good ones. You know, you think Colony 9, Machina Forest, Air of Sea. Just like, you do not think, no one thinks of Hidden Machina Village. You think of the Fallen Arm, but not the village itself. So the fact they made an amazing remix here with new instruments, oh my god, it just felt amazing.
It really was. It just I mean, I like the original track. I think it's kind of underrated, to be honest. But then hearing it play out in this, and making it somehow like insanely good area theme, both day and night version, it is great. And we didn't get as much of that as I thought we would, and I kind of wish that we got a few more remixes in there. But the ones that we did get, I mean, there's a remix of the Sword Valley, you know, in the game as well. And it's great.
Which only plays in like a tiny area, which is a shame.
Exactly.
Here's one small thing that I do want to mention here, because I'm not going to say I called this, but I really thought about it. The Sword Valley night theme, particularly, is one that I never really paid much attention to. But I remember playing through Definitive Edition for the first time, hearing part of the night theme and be going, oh, that's funny, I don't recognise this. I checked it. They added a new 30-second part to the end of the Sword Valley night theme in Definitive Edition that had a flute in it as the main instrument for the final 30 seconds. They added a whole new part to the end of it. Yeah, literally, they added it specifically for Definitive Edition with the flute. And I don't know if that was a deliberate reference to 3, as like a little bit of foreshadowing alongside all of the future connected tracks, but I'm gonna say it is, because god damn, it just brought back all the memories of me calling that.
That is insane. The level of detail they got there. And whilst we're on the topic of returning tracks, to go into the post game, holy shit, the Melia and Nia remixes for the battles.
I've been listening to them for days. Like, I've got like so many hours tracked on listening to both of those already.
How?
They are the best tracks in the series.
How did they make the future connected theme jazzier? By adding a saxophone. That's how. It's so good.
It was mental just how good both of those tracks are.
They really are. But let's not forget, the main game's soundtrack is no slouch. It's a Xenoblade game. It's just an incredible soundtrack all around. And I think the only thing which I have seen said, and I do agree with, is there's less variety in the area themes. I think they're all a bit more
I think
tranquil.
they are the weakest, to be brutally honest. Like, outside of the remixes, they're not memorable.
Yeah, well, I wouldn't even say that so much personally, but I think that when I listen to them, especially now that I finished the game, I'm going back and being able to listen. It's always better when you can listen to the full thing without hear that Noah lands on something a bit meteor and all that. You don't have to go over and over again. But I think there's some really great tracks there, but they all are very tranquil. I think the only exception really is what's it called? How am I forgetting the name already? The first grass area you go to, the main plains.
Middock Meadows. You mean
Middock Meadows? There we go.
Meadows.
Yes. Okay. Like, that's quite a big, your adventure, your Gara Plains, your Gormott, pumping adventure theme. But the rest of the game's all pretty mellow. And I think it fits, to be honest with you. I think each area, it fits the tone of the game. But you're not getting things like more ordained, high-energy tracks in any of the other areas in the game. So it does lack a bit of variety in the area themes. But I still think a lot of them are great and memorable. And then, of course, you've got things like the battle themes, which... My favourite, Keva's battle theme. How does a flute go so hard? I don't know how they did it.
I don't know. I was worried going into this game, because I was like, I don't mind flute motifs in the song, but I'm more of a piano and electric guitar guy. And like, the more traditional instruments they've used, I was like, I don't know how I feel about transitioning to flute. And then we heard the Keva's battle theme for the first time, and I instantly took every word I'd ever said back.
Yeah. It's so good.
Oh my god, there's just so many good battle themes. The You Will Know Our Names finale still remains to be a banger. The Mobius battle themes. Oh boy.
And the end version when they add the flute into it, and it's like, holy shit.
That's such good foreshadowing in the story. That's a brilliant example of storytelling.
All of that, they knocked it out of the park as usual. It's Xenoblade. I mean, you don't expect anything else, but. How they keep doing it, dear God.
Yeah. And one thing, I don't know if anyone watching wants to check this, because I'm so curious, just like a small thing. Capticorn Peak, I can't tell if the song from that is reminiscent of Fallen Arm or not, because I keep thinking it does, and then I think it doesn't, and it's weird. Anyway, that's all I want to say.
Interesting. I have to think about that, I'm wondering if there's any more, like, subtle... Like
hidden motifs,
like the insides of Uriah, the Orion mountains is sort of.
That's the Ether Mine track.
Yes, there's ones that definitely there's more in there other than just like the full Mechonis hidden Machina village in that, but they might be more subtle. So it is interesting how they've done it.
I don't think we got any Xenoblade 2 remixes in the area themes, to my memory. Like, we just got a couple Xenoblade 1 ones, and that was kind of it. It was weird, but
I was kind of expecting Uriah to get a remix in Uriah,
Yeah, exactly. And then it was just like, oh, Ether Mine? It's like, I guess it has been turned into one. That makes sense.
Yeah, it's an interesting decision there, but still, great soundtrack overall.
They made up for it in the fact they made like 5 different Drifting Souls remixes, and they're all bangers.
Yes, pretty much. That is not the track I expected to get a hardcore battle song, but it works.
Oh, it's
it really works.
The violin that goes in about like 30 seconds in, I believe, is phenomenal. Yeah.
Yeah, and I think really we've sort of been drifting over it a bit now, but. How do you find the story as a whole? Let's talk a bit about the story of the game and of Xenoblade 3. It's always hard to say going straight off of it, because I've always found that some of the bits that I enjoy most about Xenoblade 1 and 2, or so much of it is in hindsight, and digesting the story over months and realising the ways bits connect, you know. So it's hard to, like, say fully, but overall, good story, very good stuff. I enjoyed it a lot. What about you, Guy? How are you thinking?
Yeah, it's my thoughts exactly on what you said there. Is like, more in hindsight, you really appreciate the parts that you really enjoyed about the game. At this current moment in time, I'm still, of course, playing the game, and the story is still recent. Therefore, any thoughts I have might not be 100% accurate to what I'll think in hindsight. But at the very least, for now, I had a very good time with it. I think that like we've kind of said, the world building itself, I think, was really, really strong. The idea of the colonies, the consoles, that control and breaking free of it.
Yes.
The Ouroboros and Mobius. There was a lot of really strong ideas just in the world building, like the 10 terms and all of that. It was that specific part of the game's world building was really impressive to me. And that's not even mentioning the actual story itself that went on alongside that.
Yeah, there's so many great moments. And I love the individual, the theme of the game. Each game has its own sort of concept, and this one is about, the endless now. It's about, in a sense, the true villain of the game, which is this whole thing, is definitely a bit of a weaker end on the villains, I think, or the main villain.
Yeah.
I think it's general concept agreed on. But I do like the idea that the true villain is everyone's self-doubt and fear of the future, and it's something that I think, I can say personally, it speaks to me a lot of, it's so much easier to sort of stay in the endless now than it is to move on, and that's what the game is about. And I think the way the game reflects that themes in its overall story, in the world building, as well as in small character moments, I think it hits that out of the park. I think it's a very good exploration of that concept, Aionios eternity, and what that means, and how they break free from that. Yeah,
I've seen someone somewhere, I don't remember, but I remember someone saying, like, Xenoblade 1 was all about the future. Xenoblade 2 had a lot of emphasis on, like, the past, because, thinking about it, so much of that story was, like, the results of actions from Malos and Amalthus and Jin's past and the Aegis War. So that's all about the past. The first game's about the future. And then it was like, well, where do you go? This game is a combination of both. It's the game about the present. And staying in it and breaking free of that. And it's just like, they've used all three passages of time. It's clever, if nothing else. It's really good. And
not to mention, of course, like you said, we're not going to go into all this details here, because we'd be here a long time if we called out all our favourite moments and stuff, But things like, the end of Chapter 5 and the start of Chapter 6, some of the best Xenoblade ever. That was just so intense and emotional. Great moments. There's so many small character moments, like Neo and Neo? God damn it. Mio and Noah trading flutes, and all the different dynamic any scene between Yuli and Tyon is golden. There's so many standout bits. Yeah, I don't care. Mio and Noah are great, but Tyon and Yuli are the real shit. Let's not forget
they
that.
are. Let's be real. Yeah. I feel like a lot of it was just really great. The choreography in the cutscenes was, I don't want to say like, oh, it was so like the best, because all the games have got good choreography. Let's just say it was phenomenal, and like, goodness, yeah. I mean, like I say, end of Chapter 5, the choreography there specifically was a standout to me. Tyon clutching at every given opportunity through the game. It was very impressive.
Yeah, it really hit hard on those emotions, as a Xenoblade game does. Anytime it played a version of a Life Center on the Offseer theme, I was broken, So
yeah, they just did a really good job overall. Story was really strong. Weirdly enough, in hindsight, like, I always thought the game felt a bit cut short, but like, I wouldn't know why. I think, again, I have this problem every time I watch a movie, right? I always think that there's like, what's a good example? So in Spider-Man No Way Home, is that the last one? I can't remember.
Yes, yeah.
I was they were in the final act, and I thought that was like the second act of 3. I was like, oh, we've still got the final third of the movie to go. But no, that was the end of it. And I do that. That's just like one example of, I do that for basically every single bit of media I watch, is I feel like, oh, there's still like a final third of the game to do. And I thought it was the same for Xenoblade 3. Even as we got into Chapter 7, the final chapter, I was like, oh, there's probably like one or two more. I was like, oh, there's probably 2 or 3 more chapters left. We've still got quite a few things to cover. But that's just my perception being a bit all over the place.
Kai at 200 hours. Is that it? But I get you. I absolutely get you. I think that just speaks to how we were enjoying the game and we wanted more. I mean, I think that's part of it. It's but it feels like, oh, it's suddenly over. But I mean, I had a great time playing it, and I think the final thing I want to mention about, oops, I knocked the mic there. The final thing I want to mention about the sort of story is, I think Xenoblade 3 always had a bit of an uphill battle based on expectations going into it that weren't there for 1 and 2. And I think this is important to bring up because, in the first place, just speaking personally, and I think a lot of people are the same, I am more of a fan now than I was when I played 1 and 2. I enjoyed 1 a lot, and I was looking forward to 2. But it was beating 2 and seeing how they connect that made me think, okay, I love this series. And suddenly 3's got these expectations on that level. But also, in regards to the specific things, I think part of what people love about Xenoblade is, the big, crazy world reveals, and how that turns out. And for Xenoblade 1, it was new. For Xenoblade 2, at first, we thought it was a separate thing. We didn't know it was going to connect. So when it was revealed it did, it was like a big, holy shit moment. But ultimately, they can't pull that trick again with 3. By this point, we know it's going to connect. They can't surprise us a third time in that way. And by the nature of the world of Xenoblade 3, we know it's the premise is this is a combination of both worlds. And they made that clear from the start. And you couldn't not make it clear because you need things like Araya and Makone's sword in the background. If you took away those, it wouldn't be a fusion of the two worlds. But it does mean that when you find out the big revelations of this world, it's not like a, holy shit, they're connected. It's like, I already knew they're connected, but that's how. That's neat, And I still loved all the revelations with Origin. I loved the stuff that combined the two worlds. And I like how it turned out and all the things involving Melia and Nia and how they were speaking. I love all that stuff in the revelations there. But it was never going to hit the same way as the revelations at the end of Xenoblade 2. Because it never could, because they can't surprise us again, if you know what I mean. I think that's why...
Yeah, I completely agree on that one.
It's not a criticism of the game, really, it's just how it is.
I was expecting through the whole game, I was like, I really hope we get that end game moment where everything comes together and it all, adds up and makes sense and I'm absolutely gobsmacked by it. There wasn't really that moment at all, but it's like you say, they couldn't have that surprise factor in there as much. They would have really struggled to do that. So it's just unfortunate, but I didn't end up really having that big moment at the very end of the game of, wow, this is really cool. And again, I'll talk about this more in one of the other videos we're doing, but at the end of the game, the individual game, I was like, that was a really, really good, well-encapsulated story. I wouldn't say I'm completely satisfied in terms of it as the end of a trilogy, though. Like, it was a brilliant end of that game, but by the end of the trilogy, I felt more satisfied at the end of Xenoblade 2 than I did this one by a long shot, with how everything wraps up.
They definitely, and of course, again, we'll get to some more specifics, they leave a lot open. I almost wonder if this is actually going to be a trilogy at this point. And
I'm curious what they're going to do next.
Yeah. We're going to do a whole video on this, on what we think is next for Xenoblade. That sort of plan. So we will definitely delve into this more in that. But let's just say they definitely leave, the way that the world's... Essentially, this game ends and nothing is different, really. The entire game takes place in 5 seconds.
That I didn't find too... Well, I wouldn't say it was unsatisfying. Again, it was just really interesting how, the whole game, like you say, takes place in 5 seconds. But in Aionios, it was like thousands of years, but... In the long stretch, all we really got from the other worlds is what actually happened in each world is they're just there and they both are doing well, I guess. And that's all you get. And you get the one picture of Rex. That's all
Chad Rex.
Oh my god.
Oh, that's... let's not even go there. We could be here a while.
Yeah, we'll leave that one for now.
I just found that so funny. I love it. It's because it's so stupid, but I love it. Anyway, it's it's interesting how we it still leaves things very open. Basically, is how it ends. But I'm not against it either because I think there's a lot of potential for whatever they do next. It's not And it seems that, the way it ends on the final shot, that there is potential for more to happen between the worlds. Maybe Noah remembers some stuff. I think somehow they set up more, and it'll be interesting to see what it ends up being, if it does end up being anything, if Monolith Soft make a Xenoblade game next, or if they go for their untitled project we've been hearing about. There's a lot there, but at the end of the day, I still think it was a good story. It ended things nicely, and I'm hyped for whatever's next, no matter what it is, especially whatever the DLC ends up being, because there's plenty of options there. We've got a whole new, probably Torna-like story, we're assuming, so...
Yeah. It's a very weird one, like you say, again, it's just a very good individual ending, but you can't help but wonder if there's more to be explored in the main Xenoblade series, or if it is just genuinely like, no, you're not getting a 4 that wraps everything up. We're done. We're gonna go make Xenoblade X2 and our no IP. Go away. Like, we don't know. We really don't know. Maybe it's destined that the casts never meet up, and we'll only get that in a non-canon DLC again or something. We'll see.
Though I do respect their restraint, to be honest. I've seen our friend Draconian Valley, Oliver, who did our Great Ace Attorney discussion with us. He mentioned how he was glad it didn't turn out to be Avengers Portals, on your left moment, where all the characters show up and that. I think it's much better that they do the restraint. I still think I would have liked a bit more, but I think it was good that they didn't go overboard and they keep 3 very much. And they did the same with 2, they keep it its own thing.
I
think they
could
struck
have
that balance.
Brought everyone in at the very end. I feel like the way that they did the game and the way that they chose it in the end is it's better storytelling, but less essentially less fan service of oh my god, they're all everything's connected and whatever. But the storytelling was better. But I didn't pog as hard as I could have done if they did go the other route.
Yeah, it's a balance. It's like I would have been freaking out. In hindsight, it probably would have been a bit dumb and a bit much, but I also would have been freaking out. It's what's best? What do you want? It's a tough challenge, and if I was the ones on them making the decision, I have no bloody clue what I would do. So I think
there's
they
such
did
a
good stuff
legacy to live
overall.
up to. They managed to stay afloat on that front for the story.
But really, Xenoblade is so big now. I don't think the series, no matter what happens next, even if it's like an X2, the series isn't going anywhere, and I love that because it continues to be great. So
there is
bring on more
definitely
Xenoblade
more to come. Yeah.
But Kai, do you have any other final thoughts? Anything we missed you want to bring up? I think I've gone over my list.
I'll just say I'm really enjoying the game. I'm on track to 100% it in the next couple weeks, and it's just been so much fun. I'm still not bored of it, and it's just everything about it has been living up to my expectations in terms of just my experience.
God bless Monolith Soft. That's all we have to say.
Yes,
geniuses. Yeah, it's been great, and I'm continuing to go through it. I'm finishing up some side quests, but I'm also going for 100%. We'll be talking, of course, more things in the future because we love this game so much. We are planning to break down individual or specific groups of story chapters. We're planning to talk more about the gameplay mechanics and more about different heroes and all sorts. We've got a lot of stuff planned. Kai's written out a list, but also, if there's anything you guys want us to talk about, and we happen to get comments, the rare time it happens occasionally, please leave us some. Tell us what you want. Tell us what kind of things you want to hear our opinions on, what kind of Xenoblade related videos we could make, because we're planning to do it for the long haul, so...
Yeah, true.
So stay tuned for all of that. But yeah, that does bring us to the end of this video. So thank you so much, all of you, for watching. And Kai, where else can people find you at?
Twitch.tv/Fascurreyn. It's like I say, I've been streaming the game non-stop. All this 215 hours or whatever has been happening for... I actually think it's not even been a full month since oh no, it has been. I don't remember. Anyway, it's been a while. It's been 2 months roughly, and I've just been playing the game non-stop. And every single stream that I've done of the game, I've been editing down into highlights. So if you want to see certain things from the game, certain chapters or anything like that, over on my Twitch in my videos, I've got everything edited down if you want to see any of my reactions to anything in the game.
Absolutely, definitely make sure to check those out. And of course, stay tuned here on BunchaJokahs, be that on YouTube or for audio-only versions on Spotify and other podcasting sites. For plenty, as we said, plenty more Xenoblade videos coming in the future, as well as our usual monthly podcast that we do. and some other videos as well, like reactions to Nintendo Directs. Hopefully, you know, you'll see our reaction to whenever they reveal whatever the future story DLC ends up being. You know, that probably won't be till next year, but we're all anticipating it. So stay tuned for all of that. And we will see you guys in the next video. Goodbye.
Goodbye.